Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the For the Property Investor podcast. And today we've got another guest joining us today in our expert series, and it's Bruno Novo. Welcome, Bruno.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. And Bruno, now you're a property consultant. Your business is One Central Property. And some people might refer to you as a buyer's agent, just for everyone's sake. But obviously you have a specific point of difference in what you do. But give us a bit of a head start of how you started in the real estate industry, working with property investors, and and what type of clients do you specialize in looking after?
Yeah, I guess this takes us back all the way to 2017, I would say. It's probably the very first job I applied for after university. And it's probably one of the easiest industry to enter, but also the easiest to exit, right? Because there's a huge statistic where in the first year of real estate, there's probably a huge percentage of them enter and exit in the same year, right? Back then, there was no such thing as called a property consultancy company or property consultant. Buyer's agent was not even a term back then. So you will be referred to as a real estate agent, really. Still based in Sydney as well. And we came about working with first-home buyers predominantly in the Sydney market, as well as first-time investors, just really kind of bringing them and taking a step-by-step journey to help them enter the property market as well. And what we found was really interesting is that for the budget to buy a property in Sydney, it's very unaffordable now. It was also unaffordable back then too. So it was a huge challenge for them to enter the market, buy something of quality, has the rental yield, the capital growth out of it, and they're usually just limited to buying apartments. And so we came of this idea, and again, I was in a similar position where, how come I can only buy in Sydney because I was living in Sydney? Am I able to not explore other areas, other states? It's because back then this interstate investing was not a thing. Like you just buy in your state. It was not advertised back then. It was not even a concept back then. I'm sure some people did it.
And a lot of the time, people don't even like buying outside their suburb.
Exactly
or
right.
local area.
Let alone buying outside of which state they're living into. So we started exploring this idea of, okay, if I had a budget to buy in Sydney, I wonder what that budget allows me to buy in Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, all these other markets, and just opening up their horizon. So as I was working in this real estate area, I speak to a lot of all my clients. They all had very similar feedback. Oh, I wonder what I could buy in other areas. Then we really started to design, me, my wife, my business partner back then as well. We all just sat down and said, what can we do? How can we design a company that almost create a borderless investor? No matter where you are, you should be able to buy the investment property anywhere you want it to be. Obviously, the numbers make sense. The research makes sense. Let's just go. So we designed the team. We wanted to make it the property journey as simple as possible, so anyone just kind of just seamlessly go through it. So like that, at the end, they have reassurance, they are confident that they're building a portfolio that's meaningful, not just buying for the sake of buying it. So that's how One Central Property was really formed. And this was actually, we formed this company probably 6 months just before COVID happened. So of course, new business, COVID happened, that changed it completely everything. But in a way, it helped us a lot. We're now able to not speak to investors in Sydney. We're now able to speak to literally anywhere around the country. Doesn't matter in Perth, doesn't matter in Brisbane, because we're really designed to be a borderless investor. So we're able to communicate via Zoom or Google Meets and just take it to a whole other level and just practically be an online property consultancy based business.
And you mentioned that you're working with first home buyers to start off with. Are you still dealing with many of them, or is it more investors now?
Yeah, I say first home buyers, but really they're what what sort of concept, what sort of structure put in place is buying your first home, take advantage of all the grants, concessions you have, because back then they had the home builder grants, which is during COVID, they had that. So that was a $25,000 grant. It's a huge amount of money, life-changing money result. It changes a lot of things. So we to our clients, get the first home owner grant, get the home builder grant, stamp duty concession, put it all together, in the area that makes sense, with the idea, with the end result of turning that into an investment property. So a lot of them did that actually. And so now they're in a position where they might move back home because that's what they're comfortable with and keeps costs low as well, especially in today's, main topic is the cost of living. A lot of people might be moving back with family. There's nothing wrong with that. But now they have an investment property. Now they're kind of be converted to a investor now, or you can say investor, but they're renting from home. You can look at that as well. So we've seen a lot of that throughout the last few years.
And is it mainly young clients that you're attracting who might be, yes, technically buying their first home, but it's also an investment property for them?
I would say so. We in the beginning really heavily focus on millennials, Generation Z, kind of demographic because we're in that millennial age as well.
Okay.
Reason being is because, and that's another reason why we start a company. They are probably the least looked after group out of all the groups because it's their first home, first property. They do take a little bit more time for them to understand, and it takes a little bit more time to walk them through it. They haven't bought a property before, so it's a bit more time there. But we want that first property. Everyone remembers the first everything, first car, first property they ever bought, first place they ever visit. We want to make that first property journey that amazing, that joyful for them that they're like, wow, I didn't realize it's that good. We want it to be like that. And we want them to be in a position where they're so far ahead in their peers because the average age of someone buying the first property in Australia is like 36. So throughout the years in our company, our average age of clientele is now between 26 and 28. So we're almost
Right.
10
So you're
to
bringing
8
that
years.
average down.
We're bringing that average down, and we all know in our industry, the earlier they buy the property, they're going to be completely different situations later down the line.
Yeah. And what's the attitudes of people in their 20s who are around property investment? Because we get a lot of feedback from mainly younger people who have they view buying property, owning property a lot differently than their parents or grandparents' generations, where it's not something that's necessarily as aspirational, and it's they don't necessarily see it as something that's very very attainable compared to their parents and grandparents' generations. And so, yeah, what are their attitudes towards it, and do you have to overcome any of those sort of maybe negative attitudes towards it?
Well, the thing is that that's a good thing about the internet. They're actually very knowledgeable about investing because we had this whole crypto hype.
Yeah.
It's still now, so they understand investment quite to a certain degree, and so they are very open to it because the one common theme I see is that they know that their job is not going to get them where they want to be. They know that already, but probably in the parent era is work for the same job for 20, 30 years, get that pension, pay off the home, good to go. They're so different today. Like I said, they know that that job is not going to get them to financial freedom or where they want to be. So they're very open to what sort of investments can I do that's conservative, that's not high risk, that can get me just one step closer to where I want to be. Whether it's having another stream of income, whether it's just parking my money in different areas so they don't go crazy in Uber Eats or going out, right? So it's all about them understanding different investment vehicles and what risk they're open to as well. So they're very knowledgeable in that bit. It's just a matter of how do they go through the whole journey and who is going to be assisting them every step along the way, almost handheld style throughout the whole journey, just making sure they're reassured that, you know, this property journey was super complicated, but now that I've gone through it, it's actually very simple. I just need to have the right team behind me.
Are there any of these people in their 20s? Are any of them concerned about them buying investment properties is going to make the housing crisis worse? We get a lot of feedback on socials that it's just like, oh, you property investors, all you're doing is taking properties away from people who want a house to live in. It's what are their have you come across that at all?
Not really, because what we find is that, being a property investor also has a level of risk as well, not just the renters that didn't buy them. There's so many risks involved in it. They could have bought the wrong property that doesn't give them any return at the end, so they're losing money. So that's already a risk as well. But of course, you can look at the opposite side and say, we make X amount of money in capital growth, X amount of cash flow. But it's also part of, the journey of building a house or building complexes of apartments. Is actually probably the planning that takes too long, from the feedback that I get from the construction industry. Building it is not the problem there. Building it takes 18, 24 months, but it's actually the planning. It takes equally, if not longer, to do that. That's what's actually holding back this housing crisis, or everyone's talking about. It's just not there's not enough supply going to the market quick enough to meet the demand of renters that suddenly.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yep.
And that's probably the theme of latest conversations I've been having on the podcast. Is it's a supply issue. We've got and it's an undersupply issue and too much demand. It's so well. It's good to hear that young people are actually understanding these issues in general, the ones that you're talking to. I guess it's just the noisy minority who don't understand that are making all the noise. And so it's so that's good to hear. But yeah, to your point, if we were able to fix the supply issue of getting more properties built quicker, and it's not the building process that's an issue. Once you start building, they will generally go through and get finished. But it's the approval process, getting of the planning and the approval process, so they can start building, and that's what's going to hold us all up. So okay, and so whereabouts are your clients and obviously you advising them looking to buy at the moment, and what types of properties?
Look, we give our clients the choice of what type to go for. We are there to provide the research, the data, what the market demand or the suburb demand is looking for. We can actually pinpoint to the suburb of, is it a house that's most popular, or is it a unit that's most popular? And if so, let's say if it's a house, is it a 3-bedroom house? Is it a 4-bedroom house? We let the data speak for itself and just say, if this area is demanding, the most in demand is a 4-bedroom house, we're going for a 4-bedroom house, right? And based on how we design it, one of our pillars is a property agnostic, meaning we're not associated with one type of property. You might have one agencies that just does house and land or off the plan stuff, or some agents just so established. We do all of it, just so that client has a limitless choice in terms of, based on the data, all the research, what should they be choosing based on numbers as well. Like, does the ROI make sense to them? We provide them with, what states to go into, whether it's in Perth, whether it's in Brisbane, whether it's in New South Wales, Victoria. It depends on what their brief and criteria is. That really determines on, okay, if your budget is around this mark, it's advisable, or based on research, we should go into this area, or we should go into that area because of these reasons. So we do it. The way we design it's super tailored. So we don't have like a stock list or anything like that. There's no stock list at all. It's all tailored accordingly to the client. So they feel in their journey, whatever property they've chose is tailored accordingly to what their goals and objectives are.
Okay. And so if we'll give you a bit of a, if you had a young person come to you, they had a minimal budget,
Sure.
and they're wanting to get into their first property, and yeah, they've got a very small deposit saved up. What would be so obviously their price point that they'd be looking at, it would be as low as possible, and they just want to get into the market. What would be the first couple of steps that you would work through with them to look at what type of property and where?
Yeah.
And how, and if they needed more help with the deposit, whatever it might be, or equity, to be able to get in, how would you cover that off?
Yeah, that's probably one of our most common asked questions is, how do I even begin this whole journey? What do I have to do? Step one is either speak to a bank or speak to a mortgage broker, and just get a really clear understanding is, how much can you borrow? Can I borrow $1 million? Can I borrow 600,000? Because they're two different price points, right? So for them to have a really clear understanding of how much they could borrow, if they could borrow, let's say 600,000, and you mentioned that they have a small deposit, is it a 12% deposit? Because that's the bare minimum for investment. And if that's not enough, there's other ways to do it too. We explore the guarantor, or you can do a joint venture with family too. So if it's buying a home, you can go through the guarantor pathway before, where the client had a really good income over 120 in their early 20s, which is an amazing bit, but the saving is not quite up there yet. And so what we've done, what we actually designed it to be, is the mum was okay being the guarantor. So what she did is she took some equity out from her home and passed this equity as deposit for her daughter, right? Enter the property, because the mum has no association with the loan, only the equity finance out.
Okay, all right. Does that mean that mum's protected in that case if anything went wrong?
That in the case she is protected, because she's not associated with that loan at all, with that new home loan, because two separate loans there, right? But of course, the daughter wants to feel like, oh, I'm not being gifted something. She wants to pay it back to her. So what we did is we used the equity, because the property has grew so much in value, because we chose the right location, the right quality, the right bedrooms that the area demanded. So she probably took some equity out of it, pay her mum back, and so that's kind of clear. Done.
Okay, so that would be that's the strategy with that type of scenario, where if go to the bank of mum and dad for a loan or a gift or guarantor, and then at some stage in the future, hopefully as the near future, you can refinance to either release the guarantor or to pay back mum and dad. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, like I mentioned, the era is so different, because the mom and dad's era is, for them to buy a property is probably just 3 times their income, but today is probably closer to 17, or if not more, right? So I'm a huge fan of, do whatever it takes to enter the market, because the market is not waiting for anyone. It takes longer for you to save versus what the market is doing. So for you to earn 50,000 in the market is very quick. For you to save up 50,000 cash is very difficult, very, very difficult. So I'm a huge fan of, like I said, go to the bank of mom and dad, do joint ventures, enter the market. Like that first one is going to be so difficult. You just have to do whatever it takes to enter it, get the loan. Yeah.
And if you're doing those types of joint ventures, it's important to get legal advice, of course, to make sure that everyone knows how they can get out of it, because people's individual circumstances change. And so that way everyone agrees up front of how to get out of it if they want to. That way things don't get messy down the track. But it is a very good, and I've seen lots of successful transactions like that happen where myself, where people have done that. So, but you're doing it today with people now, aren't you? and
Yeah,
they're
we
doing
have
it
to.
well.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to, because for them to save up, and especially if they're in their 20s, it's quite difficult.
Mm,
Especially with, everyone's talking about this cost of living, like groceries gone up, petrol's gone up, everything's
mm,
really gone up. Makes it that much more harder to save up. So they need to find, they probably have the borrowing capacity to enter it. They just don't have the deposit. They need something or somewhere to just kick it off, really,
mm.
and find a way to pay the parents back, or just say, you know what, here's our gift to you, go ahead with it. Yeah, you might hear people get a lot of a slash or smack about, oh, you borrow someone's money, like you go to mom and dad. I don't see anything wrong with it. I just see like you're because the loan is all under your name. You're the
Yes.
one who have the repayments. It has nothing to do with the parents at all, right?
Okay.
You, that creates a level of responsibility that the person is now forced to change. Okay, I have to
Mm,
make this or can my rent cover my repayments if it's an investment? Like this, something
mm.
their mindset starts to change quite a bit. They look at money very differently. They look at money
Yeah.
all is money make money. I'm not looking at I work for money.
Mm. No, totally understand. And taking price point out of the equation,
Yeah.
um, do you have a favorite type of strategy for buying an investment property?
There's no favorite, but what's been most popular the last
Yep.
few months amongst our property investors is buying or investing into what we call as a short-term rental or Airbnb types of properties. Those
Okay.
have been the popular ones. Essentially, you're still buying the same property, whether it's a house or a unit or an apartment. The only
Yeah.
difference is you're renting it out differently. You're renting it out by Airbnb, um, and the numbers change quite a bit. We see sometimes 2, 3 times more than your long-term rent.
Mm,
That's a huge difference. Huge difference. That could mean that you're not able to hold that property, if not profit from it as well. So you go from that
and
sudden.
does that change from area to area of whether it's viable or not?
It does. So let's just use Sydney for example. You obviously you can go into the city, you can still do this Airbnb, but they're quite expensive, and there's not much growth there too, right? Because there's so much there. But if you go to, let's say, Newcastle or the Hunter region, there's a huge demand for people visiting there for work or for city siders to use as a weekend getaway. People do there for
Mm,
corporate work too. So there's and minings as well. There's so many groups as well. So that short-term rental in those areas are quite good too. So we've seen a couple of my clients where in the Hunter region, the same company booked it out for the next 5 months. So that's 5 months
mm,
of almost, I won't say guaranteed, but it's already booked in revenue, and that revenue is definitely 2 times or 2x more than your
mm.
long term. That pays for everything. You're literally profiting from it, and you're almost, the way I see is you're getting two properties performance and cash flow into one, and that
And there's a lot
accelerates
of
it.
push and there's a lot of pushback from the market as well as government policy on short-term holiday rental or short-term Airbnb type rentals. And but at the end of the day, there's a demand for it and there's a need for it. And it's not just for holiday letting. There's a lack of short-term accommodation in general. So it's not
Yeah,
like yeah. So the level of supply for short-term rentals, whether it be hotels or motels or any type of short stay accommodation, there's that shortage of supply as well. So it's really just meeting a need. It's people do need to live, families need to live in a property as well. So it's a bigger issue with a long-term supply issue overall.
yeah, and actually solves one of a huge problem as well, is that you've probably seen like videos or in TikTok or Instagram where it's just a huge line to just see one rental, right?
Mm,
Like 30, 40 groups of people just see just one rental, whether it's a 1 or 2 bedroom unit. That
mm,
is unprecedented. That is something you probably haven't seen for a while, really, right? It's an amazing time to be a landlord, right? But what about those renters, or what about those tenants? Like you said, they need somewhere to stay. So having the short term gives these renters a place to stay, at least until they find a ground and say, you know what, I know where I'm sleeping tonight. I know where I'm staying. I don't have to live in a hotel, or I don't have to live with a family, because they sometimes come with a group of, groups of kids of two. They still need somewhere to stay. So they have the financial capability of just saying, let me just find a short-term rental in Airbnb for 3 months, 4 months. They can choose whatever timeline they like. They probably get a discount from it too, because it's such a long period of booking. But at least they're reassured they have somewhere to stay. Feels like a home too. They like the area as well. And during that time is to go out to this open inspections to see, do I have a chance in getting a rental? But they have somewhere to stay at least. That we've seen a lot of bookings like that.
The naysayers would turn around and say, well, if it was rented out on a long-term situation, then those people wouldn't have to pay higher prices for a furnished property. But it's if there was more supply of long-term properties to either buy or rent, then there wouldn't be that issue to begin with. But there's also a shortage of supply of short-term accommodation for the corporate the corporate stays, whether they be a couple of days a visit, or whether they need somewhere to live for a couple of months, and as well as holiday letting and that type of thing. So it's a shortage all around for all the demand that's in the market for housing, whether it's short or long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple supply demand equation, really. You suddenly have 400,000 or more people coming to the country in such a short period of time. You're bound to have this type of problems, really. And
yes,
if it's perfectly supply demand level is all met, I reassure that I'm pretty sure rent won't be as high as it will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So well, it seems like we've solved all the problems. But no, it is a theme, and unfortunately, I don't think the problem is going to be solved anytime soon. We seem to all know, everyone that I'm talking to at least, all seems to know what the exact issue is and what needs to be fixed. We just need government on all levels to get on board and actually get things happening and working properly. And then we'll see the prices stabilize, and then we'll see rents come down, and for it to become a more even marketplace and fair marketplace. But without that supply, it's not going to happen. So, yeah. Bruno, whereabouts do you hang out the most? Where can people find you? I mean, when we post any of this content online, we'll try and tag you as often as possible. But if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Oh, look, best place to reach out or check us out is our Facebook or Instagram. Probably more on Instagram. Actually, we do a little bit TikTok too. So if it's Instagram, it's just central.property. Similar for TikTok, similar for Facebook too. We post a lot of just short form content, just to say 3 short tips of how to enter the market, or very short kind of formats, just for them to get 3 quick wins of how to even prepare themselves. So those are the areas we hang out at.
Right. And of course, as property managers, we look after quite a few of your clients, and we've been working for a little while now, so hopefully everyone's happy there. Well, actually, while we're here, tell me what your experience has been like with your clients and working with us.
Well, so far I haven't had a phone call, someone yelling at me, so that must be a good sign.
Well, yeah. Well, not this week anyway.
Not this week.
It's
But it's good.
yeah,
It's been good. Just the fact that it's a national property management, which is quite rare, especially under one umbrella. Usually it's, let's say, Red White, they're Red White, Perth, specific if that suburb. They're not all connected in a way, even though it's one brand. But yours is one brand, you have full control of the outcome too. That is quite good. And your management fees are very reasonable. and they're not ridiculously expensive, but they're not crazy cheap too. It's very reasonable as well. And just getting the level of service that the client needs to, and as well as the communication is quite seamless too. So they're reassured that they know what's happening. If they want to send out a message or an email, someone will get back to them within a 24 hour, if not 48 hours latest, really. So I think that's quite important in that bit, especially for such a huge transaction, huge purchase. They want to have the reassurance that the property manager is going to look after them or look after the property, right? And even securing the best tenants as well, best applicants, because you guys sometimes actually reject applicants because even though they are willing to pay a higher price, then might not have the best references, or they don't have the best track record, and just giving them, the clients some context and background. So look, we got two applicants. Applicant number one, he's willing to pay what you ask for, but there's some red flags here because of the references or job not so stable and so on. Whereas an applicant two, it could be a family, stable jobs. They get to pick and choose. So that bit is very important. You're not just going for who is paying the highest, it's who pays at a certain level but has the stability and will look after the property as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bruno. It's that's very good feedback. That was a question without notice, by the way, so I hadn't primed you for that. No, I appreciate that very much. But all right, well, if anyone wants to reach out to Bruno, please do. If you have any questions of myself, feel free to reach out at any time, and we'll see you next time, either for the weekly news or for our next Expert Series interview. Thank you very much.